Hello, everybody. Welcome. I see a few people are joining us now. We're going to get started here. Thanks for joining us today on our live Q&A. Just like every week, we've been bringing individuals on and just talking about recovery and things that are going on right now in our state and nation during this time. We've had such a great turnout over the last few months here of guests and participants, those tuning in and watching this, and just to have a platform for people to talk and engage in conversation. So my name is Wes Van Epps. I am an outreach specialist here at Wisconsin Voices for Recovery, and I'm also joined here in this Zoom with some of my other colleagues, Jessica Geschke, who is going to be leading today's live Q&A with our guest, as well as Megan Solikowski and Monte Ball. So we're here for those that have not tuned into our live Q&As in the past. Feel free to comment in the comments section below if you have any questions or comments throughout this live Q&A. We will also have opportunity at the end here for those that want to ask our guest any questions or have any comments around the things that we talk about today. So, like I said, welcome. I'm going to pass this now off to Jessica, who is going to introduce our guest and get things going. So, here you go, Jess.
Thank you. So I am super excited for today's live Q&A with Kelley Kitley. I'll do a quick introduction, reading the amazing things that she's been up to, excuse me, so far within her career. So Kelley is a Chicago-based licensed clinical social worker and has been inspiring clients for almost 20 years. She is an international women's mental health expert and author of Myself. Put that up there, little plug. She also has inspired, has appeared in hundreds of publications, podcasts, live news, and radio. She's been featured on media outlets such as Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Dr. Drew, Access Live, and TEDx. She's been a TEDx speaker. She's also a wife, mother, and my friend. Kelley is also one of our 2020 Wisconsin Rally for Recovery headliners. So everyone, please help me welcoming Kelley Kitley to our live Q&A. I feel like we should do a round of applause.
Thank you.
So we're going to get started today, Kelley, and I just wanted to share a little story because I held up your book myself. And if you guys don't have this, Kelley, where can they find your book?
It's exclusively on Amazon, so overnight delivery.
Awesome. So I met you about 1.5 years ago now. I was trying to think this morning when I met you, and I feel like I've known you my whole life.
Totally. I have the chills, yes.
But I remember I met you out in LA at our She Recovers conference. And, reading your book was something that it just really resonated with me. And I think that, the back of your cover of your book explains it so well, because it says that when people read your book, they'll find themselves in your story. And your book has a way of wrapping itself, or you wrap your arms around the reader and you kind of help the reader work themselves through any issues that they're having in their own life. And I remember the day that I met you, it was like a changing day for me. And I don't remember if you remembered that conversation that we had, but for those of you guys who have never been to She Recovers, women that are tuning in, it is a must do. You have to do that at least once in your life. But we went out to LA and we went to this conference, and during the conference there was a time where we were told to meditate. And so I have never meditated before, right? And we were in a room with thousands of these women who had come to this conference. And I remember thinking, okay, this meditation thing is hokey pokey. I am not doing this. I'm just going to sit there, whatever. And I was with two of my best friends, Amy and Nadine, and they were both like, okay, Jessie, we came all the way out here. We have to just try to meditate. Just stop what you're doing and, close your eyes and try to meditate. And so I'm like, all right, I'll give this a try. So I sat there and I closed my eyes, and the person leading the meditation was so good. And I remember that meditation took me to a place that day that I had forgotten completely about. And it was a traumatic experience in my life from 3 years prior where I had been sexually assaulted. And I remember not even like I knew it happened, but I didn't know it happened. And I remembered then that it took place, and I stood up and I ran out, and I was like, I can't even sit with my own self right now, because it was this moment where it was like, that did happen. It is true. Now I have to figure out what to do with it. And I came outside and you were there. And we sat down at that table, those round tables with all the white linen, and the lunch buffet was set up. And I remember you're like, oh, hi, I'm Kelley. And I didn't know who you were from Adam. And you knew I was distraught. And we talked for a bit, and you were making jokes about the enormous food and the layout and the spread. And you just healed me. We had those conversations, and I just felt like, I don't know who this woman is, but I could be friends with her forever. And you made me feel so comfortable to tell you my story. And you were the first person I had ever shared those words with in my life. And then I remember we walked inside, and you were like, well, I have to get going. We'll catch up later, but I have to go. And I'm like, where does she have to go? And you walked around the table and started signing books. I was like, oh my gosh, she's an author. Like, she's an important person. She's signing books. And I felt so dumb, because I'm like, I just spilled my beans to this woman I did not know. And she so I ran over and I picked up your book, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what. So I bought your book, and then I was so excited because you signed it for me, and then I read it all the way on the way home on the plane. But I love that book, and you guys should rush out, get that book, order it on Amazon. If it's anything that you're doing right now during quarantine, read this book. And I just I wanted to share that, because you do, like, you have this way, and I've been following you on Facebook and all the amazing things that you're doing. And I thought maybe we could start there with, like, just right now, what do you think or feel is important in the world? Because I see all the work that you're doing, and I've been watching everything you're doing. And when we chat, on Facebook, like, what do you think is important right now in the world?
Oh. Well, first of all, let me just say, I have never heard that story from start to finish. So that was what I call a God moment, that it was like two souls were just attracted at the right moment, at the right time. And it does. I mean, I have chills all over my body talking about it. And I know that other people have probably had that experience. And if they haven't, be open to it, because we all have the opportunity to experience that strong connection, even with somebody we just met for the first time. And so being here this afternoon, I mean, you all are my people, and I know that there's just an automatic understanding first and foremost. But, yes, we're in a financial crisis, we're in a health crisis, but I stay awake at night thinking about the mental health crisis that we're in. And just going from seeing clients on a weekly basis in person, and running groups and speaking to large groups of people that come together in community through recovery and through healing, are now all in their homes, isolating and having less opportunity to connect. So we have to, myself included, as somebody who identifies as a woman in recovery, have to up our game, because if we stay complacent, or if we are not connecting and working either a program or trying to work through some wounds that might be triggered now, especially with that feeling you described of like sitting with yourself that can sometimes feel so uncomfortable, then we're turning to numbing out behaviors. And in my personal life, I've had a lot of people and colleagues who have lost children to drug and alcohol overdoses, or who have died by suicide. And that just makes me want to push harder and break the silence more, and help people get the help that they need. So I think now more than ever, you joke and say, oh, and she was the author. I think of myself as somebody who has been fortunate. Like, I pound it and I go after it because I'm so passionate about it. And to be able to get on platforms to do that is, I have so much gratitude for it, because that's the only way that we can continue to educate people, is by having large platforms to do that.
I agree. And I think the work that you are doing is just amazing. And the people that you reach and the things that you are able to say, like I'm captivated every time I watch one of your podcasts or something that you've done. And so you talked a little bit about like things that we need to do. So maybe, I don't know if I want to call it advice, but what do you, what can you give people for like our well-being or our mental health during this time? I saw one of your Facebook posts about like deleting assignments. You gave people, some of your clients, deleting assignments. And I found that interesting. I was like, oh, I've never really thought about that before. Can you talk a little bit about that, and like what other things can you tell us to, to do, or like some advice you can give people right now about their well-being?
Oh, I'd be glad to. I'm a firm believer in practicing what I preach. And, we're in month 5, I think, of this pandemic, and it's getting really hard. And so at first, I think, a lot of it's about perspective, right? How do we look at this time? And I get frustrated when people are like, oh, seize the day, and this is great, and I'm cleaning my house and doing all these new projects. I think that's great. It's not always like that. If anybody sees a post like that, it ebbs and flows. But really evaluating, I think the special part about this is evaluating what works for us, what doesn't, making changes, deleting any toxicity. So when I'm talking to my clients, and again, myself included, a prescription of 5 things that are non-negotiables that we need to do on a daily basis. So for me, it's getting up before the rest of my family gets up, because I have 4 kids. And if I don't have 20 minutes of quiet before people get up, then I may wake up as a mad woman, and I'm agitated and angry and the short fuse. So that time for me is important. Being able to read something that I find is motivational, or that can give me some insight, maybe not something I haven't heard before, but the reminders, and being able to have authentic and genuine conversations like the one we're having right now. I think sometimes people aren't being as vulnerable in these times, because so much of what I hear from my clients is, well, I don't have it that bad. Like, I didn't get COVID. Nobody I know had it. I still have a job. And so then they minimize what's going on for them. And I think that's what's happening right now, is people are thinking, well, aren't I supposed to be sad or anxious? I mean, isn't everybody? And the answer to that is kind of, but anybody who struggles with mental health issues, it may be hitting us harder. And so we have to work more actively. And then being able to move my body, that's really important. As somebody who I believe holds a lot of energy in my body and past traumas, I need to move that through my body. So those are things that are really important for me. And physical touch is always on that list too. And that's so hard, because I'm a hugger, and that's how I show love, I express love, I receive it. I can do it with my kids and my husband, but they're so sick of it. It's like, give me some personal space. So, and that piece too is important, is it's not normal for us to be spending this much time with people if we do have families. So to be able to carve out time that, like, we can say, I'm taking a break, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, especially for, when you talk about physical touch, when you're looking at people in recovery who go to online recovery meetings now, like, that physical connection's not there.
Yeah.
When we used to be able to go to a recovery meeting, and, I think about how people would go to meetings and they would go for coffee afterwards, or, and that's what it was about. And like walking into a recovery meeting and shaking hands, giving hugs, like, that's all kind of been taken away with these online meetings and platforms that have come out, because that's what we have to do right now in order to stay safe. What, I guess, are you seeing, or have you heard, or advice that you have for people who crave that sense of I need to know where I belong right now. I want to be able to connect with other people in recovery, and I need that physical touch, but I can't get it. So what can I do?
Well, I think, I'm right outside of Chicago. And so, I know different states are practicing differently and in different phases. But there is nothing, it's all relative, because it's like, now I may get that connection from somebody else by putting on a mask and walking into a coffee shop and talking to the barista. It's not physical touch, but it's human connection and being able to ask them how they're doing and vice versa. And so a lot of times, or I'm walking around in my neighborhood and I wave to somebody, those are interactions, I think, especially if we're living alone, that is so important for us to, the Zoom, I know everybody's doing it, and online meetings, that it can sometimes cause fatigue. And there's nothing better than just old school way of like eye-to-eye contact with somebody that can really just help you connect more without the physical touch, but in-person connection. Or in nature. I mean, even if you're in the middle of nowhere and, you have to travel a long way, to be able to just be still and be one with nature and find the gratitude in that.
I love that. And I also love the idea of, maybe it's not physical touch, but, putting on a mask and just going into a coffee shop and saying hello to the person there, or running over to your neighbor and just talking and saying hello. That does help. I like that idea a lot. I think the other question I had for you too was parenting right now in the time of COVID. I've seen some of your work online about recently a behind the counter, I believe it was.
You did your research, girl. I am so proud.
I watched it. Well, it came out and, you were talking about there's this huge increase in depression and anxiety, and suicide rates are going up, and people are using alcohol and drugs, and especially women. And I really related to that because I am a single mom and I am home with my children 24/7, and I do work from home, and I have, the household duties, and that really resonated with me. What advice do you have for parents, men and women, that are at home taking care of their kids and working from home, or some, are essential workers in this time? It's stressful. We're stressed. Everyone's so stressed.
Yeah. I really encourage families to have conversations about this. In our household, we call them family meetings, where if I'm feeling angsty, chances are my kids are feeling that, and they're wondering, did I do something? Why does mom seem agitated? And being able to have conversations about this. Like, we are living together and working and doing all of these things, and sometimes we need space. And sometimes, in my community especially, there were a lot of moms who reached out who were saying, my daughter is so concerned about going back to school and is experiencing a lot of anxiety. And so not only are we managing our own anxieties, we're managing our kids' anxieties too. So being able to have conversations about that, with our kids. And look, none of us have ever done this before, and myself included as a therapist, when people are like, well, what do you think is going to happen? I don't know, but what I do know is a lot of our feelings are around anxiety, and I know how to manage anxiety. And so just being in the present moment and trying to reassure your kids and yourself that in this moment, and that goes into practicing mindfulness, I am okay. And I don't know what the future looks like, but I will handle that when it comes up. And having, I think, kids being able to sit outside in their yard and talk to each other about this. I hear my kids having FaceTime calls with their friends, and they're curious. My daughter saw a classmate she hadn't seen since March yesterday, and it was like they were meeting again for the first time. So yeah, I'm concerned about our kids, and I think they're resilient, and how we lead the way is really important.
Excellent. I love that. I know that you have some feelings as well, and I've seen some of your posts regarding the racial injustices that are going on in our country right now. And I wanted to give you some time to talk candidly about that. Just kind of give you that platform.
Whew. Such a loaded question. Yeah, I think as a social worker and somebody who has always been curious about social justice and working with underserved populations, and certainly living right outside a metropolitan city, in a community that is extremely diverse, this goes back to our kids as well, that for me right now, I'm reading a book called White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, for anybody who might be interested, because I've always considered myself very liberal and inclusive, and my community is very diverse socioeconomically, racially, and also in terms of like gay and lesbian parents as well, that I think my kids have been impacted the most, and our kids, even our young people, who have been raised in a different generation. My son, some of his best friends are African-American, and it has been like so distraught about this, and not understanding like why are people being treated this way. And he talks to his Black friends about it, and they're the ones who are educating. And I think the thing that has been the most impactful is talking to Black people in my community who I'm friends with about asking, what is this like for you? I can see that it's hurtful, and I can see all the stress that it's putting on our communities and our families, but like, I want to listen. I want to hear what their experience is like. And so many times I'm looked at as the expert. And in this situation, I'm like, tell me, and I want to listen, and I want to understand more. So I'm doing my best to educate myself as well as opening conversation.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think and feel like that's a great platform and a great advice segment for other parents, because I'm a parent of a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they watch the news and they have questions and they're asking me things that I don't have answers to. Yeah. And I don't know, things. And so, sometimes I'm not sure how to ask the right questions as to why things are the way they are and how they got that way and how we can change them. And so you're right, just being able to open those conversations and listen and figure out what we can do. And I just think we can do so much better. We have to do better.
Yeah. And even down to like the music some of my kids listen to, where there's inappropriate language, or derogatory terms, and like, that is not acceptable in our house, and being like, well, our friends listen to it, and so I think it's gosh, what a crazy time to grow up right now. But also, I see how inclusive this generation is maybe from the one that I grew up in.
Right. So the Rally for Recovery is coming up September 26th, and we are virtual, and we're so excited to have you be one of our main headline speakers. So I want to I don't know if maybe you've thought about this at all, but kind of give the audience a little teaser of what they can expect from you.
Sure. Thank you for asking me to do that. I'm so bummed we can't be in person to do that, especially I was looking so forward to seeing you. But I, will share parts of my story from my book in that piece of my talk, but also how addiction affects the family, and generations of addiction being passed down, and changing the conversation about addiction, sobriety, recovery, not only as a professional, but also from somebody who's had personal experience with those topics as well. And so that will be a piece of it, as well as what can we do to help those who are already in recovery or who are trying to get there. How can we be supportive to family members or friends who are struggling, especially right now?
Awesome. Well, we can't wait for that to happen. I can't wait for you to come on with us on our platform there. And then the last question I have for you is, I did promise Wisconsin that you would share your LA famous people story. So
I'm described by people as uninhibited, and imagine, I mean, you saw me in action there. Imagine if alcohol was involved in that situation. That was fully sober in mind and body. And when we were, you guys, when we were at She Recovers, we were at the Beverly Hilton, you know, which is this like amazing, the Golden Globes are there, I think. And so it was during a time that I think there was some awards ceremony going on. It was right before, I mean, you're probably...
Yeah, I'm not sure what award, but it was some big awards ceremony, something right there.
Yeah, they were having like a mini red carpet, and so
Yes.
you know, we had been attending different groups all day. I think it was about 4 o'clock, and I had just kind of hit a wall, and I had gone up to my room and dressed up for a gala we were going to that night, because I saw all these famous people in the lobby, and I was wearing like, I think, yoga pants and a t-shirt, and I was like, well, I stick out, so I'm gonna pretend like I belong here. And there was a red carpet, and like people were going through, I mean, Justin Hartley, right? Is that his name? And who else was there? Like big time A-list.
Sandra Oh.
Sandra Oh, yeah. The guy from Happy Days. And I was just like walking around pretending like I was at the party and just asking if I could take pictures with some of the celebrities. And for the most part, everybody was really nice, but there were security people around who would like shoo people away. And I just found like, if you pretend like you belong, then people will believe you. And it was definitely a fun highlight of that weekend. And what I found with that is like, you know, I do like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to tell me that I'm annoying or that I don't belong there. They're going to kick me out. It was really fun. And I have nothing to show for it other than pictures.
So I stuck out and I was shooed away. And then I sat outside in the lobby and watched her posting pictures of all of her famous encounters. I was so mad. Because I wanted to be part of the cool kids club. I was like, how is she getting these pictures? How did she get in that room? But yeah.
I eventually got found out, and they did tell me I had to
kick you out.
But it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I was kind of mad at you for a hot moment. Oh, but that was funny. Right. Well, let's open it up. We're just at about almost 1:30, so we can open it up for any questions or comments from anyone from the audience. You can go ahead and just unmute yourselves if you have any. No questions? Any questions from anyone on our team?
People can always feel free to reach out to me directly and ask questions too, if there's something that's more personal that maybe they don't feel comfortable asking on a platform. I'm very responsive through private messenger on Instagram or Facebook, and there on my website as well. You can get in touch with me directly through email.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelley, for joining us today. I thoroughly enjoyed being able to interview you. We so look forward to the Rally for Recovery on September 26th and having you back on. And yeah, we'll wrap it up then with that. Thanks again for you.
So good to see you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.